So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our February SPCA meeting, meeting of the Statewide Prevention Coalition Association. And bear with me, we are, as I've said a few times, this is our first SPCA meeting in Zoom, of which we should all be experts by now. But it is taking me just a little while to get adjusted. I will start with a little bit of a SPCA update. Jody, you see with us here. Jody has been, Jody, how long have you been, your best guess, how long have you been a member of the SPCA Advisory Council? And
you know what, it has been a mystery for years, but when you read that induction script the other day, I think it said 2014, so almost 7 years.
So Jody has been part of the Advisory Council for many years, has been the SPCA chairperson for many years, and part of our goal for the Advisory Council this year is to kind of, we want to do the same things that we're encouraging our members to do, and that's to have a good organizational structure, to have policies and practices in place that help guide your leadership. So that said, Jody has she's still going to be with us on the Advisory Council, for which we are incredibly grateful. But she has stepped down from her role as chairperson of the SPCA Advisory Council. And on that, I would like to introduce our new chairperson for the SPCA Advisory Council, Beth Thomas.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, James. First of all, I just want to echo James. Thank you to Jody. She has done a phenomenal job. I would say it's easily been a decade that I've known Jody as part of this council. And I know I have big shoes to fill, but I'm really looking forward to being part of this great leadership, and we have a great advisory council. And the biggest thing I want to say is we want to hear from you. This is your organization. We are just sitting as leadership, but we want it to reflect the needs that you guys have. So do reach out to James, myself, or any of the advisory council members and let us know how you want this group to operate. So thank you. Thank you, Jody.
Yes, again, Jody has been here. I took over from my predecessors as the Prevention Action Alliance staff coordinator for SPCA in December. I have only hosted one in-person SPCA meeting, but a dozen or so mini meetings and virtual meetings. But Jody has been the advisory council chair for several iterations of the PAA staff person. So we're excited that she is still going to stay on. You know, as we look to grow the advisory council, we definitely want to make that a learning experience for our new members, and to have, you know, I said in one of our advisory council meetings, we don't have more Jodys and more Beths and more Amandas around the state. So, and Amanda Constarner is here as well, one of our advisory council members. You know, so the people that come into the advisory council, it's going to be a learning experience for them. And not to say that they aren't qualified by any means, but that, you know, it's a role that people don't maybe understand what it is. And one of those kind of public positions that people get nervous to take. So again, we thank Jody for continuing to sit on the advisory council and helping to guide us and bring our new advisory council members up to speed. So Jody, thank you.
James, I just wanted to say to everyone, it has been a real pleasure. I know our coalitions are a passion of mine. I have to say, of all the work I've done over the years, I kind of found this is my heartbeat. And I know I personally have been better because of each person that attends SPCA, our membership. And I will also say Beth is an amazing colleague, and I love her passion and her strength. Just smart. I love the way she thinks. She always challenges me to be better just in conversation with her. So I don't think we could be going in a better direction. We're adding some new advisory council members. I see Lori Provosol, again, Amanda Consterner, amazing. So I'm excited. I know it's been a weird year, but I think it's also a great time to press restart and go forward as an organization. So I just really appreciate Beth stepping into this role, and I'm excited for our future. And I echo, hey, we need the membership's voice at this time just to know how to go forward. So thank you for the honor and privilege to serve for so many years for SPCA.
All right. We will go ahead and move on. I can, almost looking into my crystal ball, can see that when we do meet again in person, we will maybe have a little something for Jody to recognize her efforts over the years. Zoom is great, but some things are better celebrated in person. So a quick look at today's meeting. We're going to start with an advocacy update from JP. We'll have some state partner updates. I know Jim Ryan is here from ADAPO, Derek Longmire from PG&O. Sorry, I just, if anyone is looking at the video and you see Lori's camera, there's a dog slowly intruding into her screen. So we have Jim, Derek, and Stacy from Ohio Moss here to provide an update. So we'll get through our guest updates, and then we have some SPECA updates, and then we will hand it over to Mindy Muller, our guest speaker from Community Development Professionals, to talk about some quick funding strategies. Mindy was supposed to be with us in December, as some of you might remember. Mindy is doing much better. She was unable to make it to our December meeting because of COVID. So we are pleased not only that she's here, but that she's of course doing better and doing well. So JP, if you are, I see that you're on. If you would like to unmute yourself, there you go. I see you.
Good morning, everyone. So I just have a couple quick updates, and then I'll pass it back to James. A number of you have registered for our Advocacy Week, so thank you for that. I am still in the process of scheduling meetings. All the offices have been contacted, but because of COVID, because a lot of the staff are working from home, they aren't able to answer their office phones. And a lot of them don't have, actually the majority of them, don't have their cell phone numbers in their contact information subheaders in their email. So most of the communication has been via email, which means that response times are going to be slower. So I'm planning and I'm hoping to have the majority of appointments finalized by the end of the week. And after that, each group that signed up should be receiving a Zoom invite with the appropriate time, and I'll also send up a follow-up email. And the week after, I plan to send out the resources that PA wants to share with the offices and share with you in preparation for Advocacy Week. Just as another quick recap for those of you who attended my last legislative webinar, I went over this. But the week of Advocacy Week is going to function this way. Monday and Friday are going to be content days. So Monday from about, I think 10 a.m. to about 1, we're going to have Representative John Tavis Gerald open us off and give a 30-minute remark on the importance of behavioral health and the importance of prevention and all of that. And then I'm going to give a miniature Advocacy 101 presentation for those who are new to Advocacy Week. And then we're going to have some office hours, different content experts in prevention, so that folks who have specific asks when it comes to, youth-led prevention or substance use or gambling and gaming, you all will have the opportunity to speak to individuals specifically about that as you prepare for your meetings. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are only going to be legislative appointment days. There will be no other content. So whenever your appointment is during those days, if you have both your appointments on Tuesday, you just have to, be prepared for those appointments on Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday, you don't have anything until Friday. If you have an appointment Tuesday, Thursday, that's what you have to be prepared for. I'm making sure that they're all 30-minute appointments. I've done my best to make sure that every person or every group has an individual appointment. I've tried not to, given that everything's virtual now, I really want folks to have one-on-one time with those offices. There will be some groups that will have to be lumped in, but the majority of folks are going to have individual meetings with those offices. And then Friday, we're going to have I guess you'd call it a closing ceremony. We're going to have a discussion about the budget, and we're going to have a small panel discussion about the state of advocacy and prevention. So that's just kind of a quick rundown. I know folks have had a couple questions regarding, is it a 9 to 5 ordeal on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? No. Most of the time, it's only going to be an hour out of those days if you have meetings both those days, or 30 minutes for whatever day you're scheduled for. So that's that. Any questions about how that's going to function? Okay, cool. So yeah, if you registered, keep an eye out for some emails from me, and we should be good to go. Second thing I want to discuss is the budget. I know that's on everyone's mind. Obviously, the governor released his budget proposal. What is it? 2 weeks now? 2 weeks ago. And, that had some very high level information about, where the department wants to go. But I do have some preliminary language from the General Assembly regarding the budget, because that's really what's going to dictate, how things function on the ground. And it looks like this year, our advocacy is really going to be focused around student wellness and success. So for those of you who are around last time, we had the student wellness and success dollars, it was about what, 600 billion or something like that. And then we had the K through 12, which was about 36. The K through 12 at the time when it was passed in the last budget was really marketed as one-time funds to get the infrastructure built in our communities to continue the relationship between schools and behavioral health providers. So the department opted this time to kind of move that responsibility of the K through 12 into student wellness and success. And based on what I'm seeing here, they've added a couple things to help make that transition. Last time around, there was a list of initiatives that those dollars could be used for, but prevention was not listed specifically, which was an issue. There was also issues about the reporting from each of the districts and each of the schools, and whether they're actually using the funds to increase their prevention or behavioral health capacity, or whether they were just using them to supplant and then using the newly freed funds for other things within the school. So, I don't have any answers about the reporting piece yet, but when it comes to the initiatives, the General Assembly did add this language. So in any fiscal year, city, local, exempted village, or joint vocational school district, community school, or STEM schools, schools shall spend the student wellness and success funds it receives for any of the following initiatives. Mental health services, and they added including telehealth services. So they're allowing those funds to be used for telehealth services. And then the piece that applies to us is culturally appropriate, evidence-based, or evidence-informed prevention education, including youth-led programming and social emotional learning curricula to promote mental health and prevent substance use and suicide. So that's written in there as of right now. And this is an official language. Don't take this with a grain of salt necessarily, but just know that it could change. But the way that I see it written right now, this is a very good thing. And then you scroll down, there are a couple other things that they added. There's another piece of it that says, after listing all the schools that are subject to the requirement, so these schools shall develop a plan for utilizing student wellness and success funds it receives in coordination with both of the following. So last time around, you only had to coordinate with one of the following lists, which I'll read out, but now they're requiring that schools meet and partner with two following, classes of partners, I guess you could say. The first category is either a ADAMH board, so a board of alcohol, drug, and mental health services, or a community-based mental health treatment or prevention provider. That means these schools, based on if they're using wellness and success dollars, when they're making their plans, they have to partner with an ADAMH board or a prevention provider. And then they also have to partner with an educational service provider, a county board of developmental disabilities, community-based mental health treatment or prevention provider, and then again, the Adam H board, and they listed a bunch of other stuff. So what does this mean? That means based on this language, schools that are making plans to utilize their wellness and success dollars have to at least partner with a prevention provider or a Adam H board. And then they can, a school can partner with both an Adam H board and a prevention provider. They can partner with an Adam H board and an educational service center. So they can do a couple different pairings, but there has to be two. And one of those two has to either be an Adam H board and a prevention provider. So that's what I'm reading right now. Again, when it comes to the reporting, I haven't gotten to that, part of the bill yet. I got this sent late, Friday night, and it's a 2,000-page document. So bear with me. But that's kind of where we are when it comes to student wellness and success. I did see a question come in. I'm not allowed to share this yet because it's not introduced, and the General Assembly is very finicky about that. So I cannot share this yet. But once the language is introduced, I will share that document. Let me see. Okay, question about Advocacy Week. Is there a schedule online so we know exactly when those Monday and Friday sessions here? So the schedule for the Monday and Friday content sessions are going to be sent out via email. So whoever signed up on behalf of your group, they will have the information soon. And I'm sure I can send that to James too, so he can send that information out generally. We don't really have a place online where those are just listed. I'm still finalizing the details for some of those sessions, but they will be sent out beforehand. And they're not mandatory. I do want to say that. Obviously, you signed up, so making your legislative appointment is the most important thing. But if something comes up on Monday and you can't attend, we completely understand. We do recommend that you attend, since there will be information on, PAA's policy priorities, how we should approach the day. And there's going to be some good conversation too that you all probably want to be privy to as we move into the heavier portions of our budget season. But if you have a conflict that's, you can't, work around, we completely understand that. Any other questions? And feel free to unmute your mic too. James, I don't know if you have anything.
JP, I will actually jump in. I certainly don't want to cut you short. I would invite anyone that has a question to send it either to me or you. We do have a kind of a busy schedule today, and I don't want to run super late.
Of course, yeah.
So, all right. Thank you so much, JP, as always. We will move into some state partner updates, and we will start with Mr. Jim Ryan and ADAPO, because I know he has another time commitment here soon.
I do, and sadly I have to leave here in just a few minutes, so I appreciate the time. Good to see everyone. Just a few ADAPO updates. I think everyone hopefully knows at this point, but the ADAPO conference is taking place May 4th through 6th. It will be virtual again. We're really excited. Registration will open March 1st, and so keep your eyes out for that. And we'll have more information about some of the presenters and content at that time as well. Our theme is Doing Prevention Well, which has multiple kind of angles to it. One is doing prevention well, meaning science-based prevention and developing a organizational and system structure to do prevention well, but also means doing prevention well as in healthy well, and how we can take care of ourselves and manage our own wellness while we're doing good work. So keep your eyes open for that. Also, we ADAPO members, you have received on Monday mornings the nomination information for the ADAPO Awards that came out today for both the ADAPO Awards and then the ADAPO Youth Prevention Awards as well. So please nominate. We only get to consider candidates for the awards once they've been nominated by the membership. So please encourage you to do that. Those nominations are due March 8th. And then also due March 8th are the applications for those who are interested in presenting at the ADAPO Youth Prevention Showcase, which takes place on Wednesday, May 5th, as part of the conference, but it's its own standalone event. And we will be highlighting up to 5 projects, initiatives, interventions, basically prevention activities that youth prevention leaders have been engaged in. So you've received that information via Monday mornings as well. And so I encourage you, if you are working with some young people who are doing some pretty interesting and innovative work around prevention, to submit applications there. And then the last thing is just a mea culpa. The Monday mornings, the link to next Tuesday's Lunch and Learn, which is focused on using Zoom well, correct, Jody? I got that right? Jody is chairing.
Jim, I just stopped. Is next week Zoom, or is that one the Creative Prevention Partnership?
No, you're right. Next week is Creative Prevention Partnerships. I have too many Lunch and Learns running out of my head. So yes, next Tuesday is Creative Prevention Partnerships. The link in Monday mornings this week is incorrect. So you will be receiving, as usual, a Lunch and Learn specific invitation tomorrow that will have the appropriate link. So ignore the link that was in Monday mornings this morning for the February 23rd Lunch and Learn. You'll get the accurate link tomorrow.
Hey, Jim, can I chime in on the Lunch and Learns?
Please do.
You know what? I'm a board member for ADAPO and on SPECA, and I'm realizing we do not have enough cross membership. So if anyone's on this call today and you're not an ADAPO member, it is an amazing organization. The difference between SPECA is really in your work and your coalition. That ADAPO membership really helps as your development as a prevention professional. The Lunch and Learns that Jim is speaking about is open to ADAPO members only. So I say this, if you are not an ADAPO member, go over to the ADAPO website. I think Jim will put the link into the email or into the chat box. But on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, these Lunch and Learns are really fun. We're bringing topics together and creating an opportunity to really hear some showcased organizations' efforts in the state of Ohio, and then have conversation as membership around those issues. And I'm finding them to be very beneficial. We'll have an upcoming one on coalitions advocacy at a local level. And that's not a topic that we really discuss a lot here at SPECA. Usually we're more at that state level. The unique partnerships, that's going to be on tapping into OSU Extension, Children and Family First Councils, just some organizations. One is the Governor's Office of Minority and Faith-Based Community. So they're just different things that are going on in Ohio and very specific to prevention. And I think the conversation and sharing is very beneficial. So if you're not a ADAPO member, go over, join, and we'd love to see you there. Thanks.
Thanks, Jody. Ringing endorsement. We like that. Yes, and Jody, her work continues in Leaders from Other Ways. She and Corey Brown are the co-chairs of the membership and networking team on the ADAPO Board of Directors, and working with Jody Galloway, Amanda Hampton, some other folks to pull off the Lunch and Learn. So doing great work there. So that's all I have. I will turn things back over to James. Everybody please have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.
Hey, thank you so much, Jim. Stacy, I see you are with us. Stacy's already shared some information in the chat box. Stacy, if you wanted to unmute yourself and grace us with your audio and or video presence.
Well, trying to, the sun's shining. That's a good thing. Maybe it'll melt some snow. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, let me go. Since JP talked about the budget to be introduced, and yeah, there's a little bit of, what we know, what we don't know, but with the funding that is to be included for student wellness and success funds, I had that on my notes as well to mention. We've heard that last time it was 600 million for schools, and this time we've heard it's more. So that's all I know about that amount is more than 600 million. But it also is much more specific in how it can be used. And we did a lot, just tons of work with the Department of Education on the 18 million that went out for the K through 12 prevention education initiative. And there was a needs assessment that the districts participated in, and implementation, well, they were called action plans, and then implementation plans. And many of you would have participated in those efforts. Now, with this opportunity, we just want to emphasize that it is an opportunity for our prevention, network across the state to work hand in hand with school districts, educational service centers, any educational partners that you possibly can. The connections are likely made at this point, since we had all the work that went on around the 18 million. But this is an excellent opportunity to make those connections stronger, but more importantly, to bring prevention even from a more heavier perspective into the schools.
Stop.
Benefit all those little kiddos, there they are, and to benefit educators with professional development and the kids of every age. So reach out, let them know you're there. If you can partner with your districts, that's ideal, because they will be looking at how best to spend many millions of dollars. We also have an opportunity to receive additional funding from the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant. The department's normal block grant is around $65 million on the alcohol drug side of business, and an additional 60 to 65 is being added to that based on COVID needs. There will be additional prevention funding, that will be used, and we're looking at how that will occur as we speak. Certainly want you to know that, again, there's an opportunity for additional funding. What that means on an ongoing basis, it's unlikely to be on an ongoing basis. So, we need to think of sustainability, what can be done, and then be self-sustaining, basically. Or is it infrastructure building that will support our service structure moving forward? So just to let you know, that's happening. And then the last thing is what I put in the chat. We've done a lot of work with the Department of Education, within our office, and with the board association and the boards and the providers, actually, on campaigns around youth wellness, parent caregiver wellness, and teacher educator. So this link takes you to a place on the Department of Education's website where what we consider the best of those campaigns is hosted, with links to where the content is. And then there's also a social media guide. Most of you are familiar with Origo Branding, who the agency that does all the problem gambling campaign work for us. They created this guide and donated it to the state of Ohio and to all of you. And it's a basic social media guide. It covers Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and maybe Snapchat. I don't remember. I know there's a fourth platform in there. And just basic things like, how many hashtags do you use for Instagram versus how many hashtags for Twitter, that kind of thing. So it's there, it's yours, and we urge you to, whatever messaging you're putting into the community, the social media guide may be useful. I think it should be very valuable. And also the links to the campaign resources that have already been created are all there for you. Thanks, Beth. I see your note. Jody, I know this group will desperately miss you, but congratulations, Beth, on this new role. And thank you all for everything you do.
Hey, thank you so much, Stacy. If anyone is interested in the social media guide, Stay tuned. During the SPECA update section, we have some both training and funding opportunities around social media. So
Yay.
more to come. Yeah. Stacy, thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Derek Longmire from the Problem Gambling Network of Ohio.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Only update that I have right now is next month is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And with Problem Gambling Awareness Month is the 18th Annual Ohio Problem Gambling Conference, which will be held virtually this year. And we have 22.5 approved CEs for prevention for our conference, and we'll be having the conference Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the month of March. And I will drop the link to the conference in the little chat there so you can check that out. So right now we're $65 for the conference registration rate for those 22 and a half hours. And if you're in need of ethics, that will be a post-conference session that will be the last Tuesday of the month, and that will be available for only $15 or no cost for PG&O members. So if you have any questions about that, you can just email us at Problem Gambling Network of Ohio. That's all I've got, James. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Man, you guys totally unintentional between Stacy and Derek. I was set up pretty well to talk about some of the SPECA updates that we have. Before I get into those, we'll tease those opportunities, but before I get into those, I want to introduce our newest SPECA Advisory Council member, with both a cat and dog assisting her in her duties. Lori Pavasil has graciously agreed to join us on the SPECA Advisory Council. We had an advisory council meeting 3 weeks ago, where she was officially inducted. Very much, if anyone remembers National Honor Society from high school, very much a similar type of induction. So Lori, do you want to unmute yourself and just say hi and introduce yourself? And Beth, I would invite you if you want to chime in and make some introductions.
Thank you, James. I greatly appreciate it. Didn't know I was going to have to talk, but I'm excited to be here, excited to learn so much more and to get to work alongside some phenomenal people who I've learned so much from over the last few years. So I'm really excited and hopefully can give back a little bit for all the amount I've learned from everyone. So I'm excited to be on board. Thank you.
Lori, we're so excited to have you. You bring such a fresh perspective to the advisory council, and I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and you just have a great sense of energy and just a huge commitment to young people. So I'm really excited about bringing you on board.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Awesome. I told Lori, I think she's been, we connected early in COVID, and she made the mistake of giving me her cell phone number. And I said, for better or worse, and geographically, we're super close. So for better or worse, that means that she's going to be my new go-to. So that said, if anyone is interested in taking a seat on the advisory council, we do have a couple of open seats. You do have to represent a coalition, a prevention coalition. That does not have to be a substance abuse prevention coalition. Advisory council members can be from a problem gambling prevention coalition, a suicide prevention coalition, or whatever other type of coalition you may represent. So please reach out to Beth or I for more information on that. So that said, I do quickly want to go over a couple of other spec updates. I know I'm cutting into Mindy's time, and Mindy, I apologize for that. As Stacy mentioned, the social media toolkit, we do have a couple of social media trainings coming up. This is through the work Prevention Action Alliance does with our problem gambling prevention efforts. March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, as Derek mentioned. So we normally do some skill building trainings, and we go around the state. Derek and I were actually doing those last year as we were driving home from our very first training in Dayton. we got the call that that was it. That was the last day we were allowed to do in-person activities because of COVID. So we switched to Derek. I don't want to toot our own horns, but I think we were the first people to offer virtual trainings because we got those out pretty quick. So in that vein, we are going to do some social media trainings because we have a lot of great new materials that are part of the problem gambling campaigns that the state has. Before You Bet and Change the Game Ohio, respectively, beforeyoubet.org and changethegameohio.org. And we would love to see you use some of those assets in the toolkits that are available with each campaign on social media. So we have a training coming up tomorrow. I'm sorry, I've got a sheet here with links I'm trying to share with everyone. The first training is going to take place tomorrow. And we have 2 sessions scheduled. It's the same thing. So only, if you're interested, you only need to register for one. Feel free to register for both, but it will be the same thing. They are not different sessions. We have worked with Andy Duran. He is from the LEAD Coalition in the Chicago area. He, prior to coming into the coalition world, has a background in the tech industry. I was able to sit through some presentations with him a few years ago in the Columbus area. I don't know if anyone else was part of those, but I think they were fantastic. It's been several years. I still reference the information that he gave us. So super excited to bring him in to do these trainings for us. And one of the things he's actually going to be doing is live in the training. He's going to be walking through how to buy a Facebook ad. There's a very low barrier to entry cost-wise on doing some Facebook marketing. So we'll look at a few platforms. We'll look at how to read the data that we get from social media marketing when we engage. And then he's going to go live through the process of purchasing an ad. So we have the first training tomorrow. The second version, again, the same training, just a different time, is going to be next Tuesday, February 23rd. It's going to be at 1:30 p.m. And I'm putting the links, as I'm saying these, I'm putting the links in the chat box. But again, feel free to reach out to me if you need them. So we're going to do some trainings on how to buy social media, how to spend money through social media marketing. And in that same vein, we would like to give you some money to do some social media marketing. We have 10 $1,000 mini grants made available generously through Ohio Moss. We have 10 $1,000 mini grants for you to spend solely on Facebook ads throughout the month of March. They do need to spend in furtherance of Problem Gambling Awareness Month, so they do need to be focused on problem gambling messages. But the idea is that the skills you will build doing these can, of course, be carried out to any type of social media marketing. The application for this, it's a very simple application, just a few questions. Please don't be scared. It asks what you're currently doing to promote problem gambling from your agency. You do not have to be currently doing anything. Please let us know, what you're doing, or if not, if you're not doing anything, why you would like to be involved in this project. Because we would love to not only expand the problem gambling message, but expand the agencies that are working on problem gambling as well. So that is a $1,000 mini grant that is due this Friday, February 19th at 1 p.m. We will get notices of award out by Monday, and then we will get checks out to you shortly thereafter. So it is for a campaign that you can run throughout the entire month of March. And I'm really excited about this project because it's not solely Prevention Action Alliance. We've actually partnered with Prevention First out of the Cincinnati area. Jen Beer, if any of you know her, is going to be providing some training and technical assistance as well. So we certainly encourage you to attend one of the 2 trainings that we have taking place either tomorrow or next week. But as part of this project, you will actually attend a one-on-one, you'll attend a small group session with Jen and Prevention First and the rest of the grant recipients. And then you'll also have the opportunity for a one-on-one TA session with Jen as well. So we're super excited about the project and that we get to partner with Prevention First. Please, again, let me know if you have any questions. And then this Friday, we have partnered with ADAPO and their advocacy committee. I'm sure many of you know Mary Wolf from Claremont County. I'm sorry, now with the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, formerly with Coalition for Drug-Free Claremont County. She is the chair of the ADAPO Advocacy Committee, and we are going to be working on issues around DORAs, the designated outdoor refreshment areas that many communities are seeing pop up. This is something that I've gotten a lot of requests for information around. In my capacity as SPCA coordinator, JP has gotten a lot of requests. Mary and ADAPO have gotten a lot of requests. So no need to reinvent the wheel. We're all working together. So what we're going to do this Friday, we're going to meet, we're going to go over the expansion of DORAs through COVID. Spoiler alert, they made it easier for a community to put one in place by multiple avenues. So we're going to go over that. We're going to hear from people that currently have DORAs. We'll be asking what you found to be best practices. And from everyone, we're going to ask, what can we do? What tools can we provide you? What advocacy tools can we provide you on how to respond when this issue comes up in your community? So be prepared to be part of the conversation. It's certainly not come here, James and JP and Mary tell you what to do and how to fix the problem. We are inviting you to be part of the conversation. We want to hear what's working and what we can do to support everyone. So registration for that is in the chat box as well. So that is it for me. I know there was a lot to cover. Again, feel free to email me or reach out if you have any questions about any of this stuff. But please, I would encourage all of you to take advantage of the social media training and the social media funding opportunities. If you've never engaged as an agency in social media marketing, it's fun. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's not super complicated. Learn how to do it. We'll give you the money to do it, and you can see the number of people you can reach with just a few dollars on Facebook is impressive. So, all right. All of that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our guest speaker today, Mindy Muller from Community Development Professionals. And Mindy just sent out her workbook in the chat that everyone can download. And Mindy, if you bear with me, I will make it so you can share your screen and take control here. All right, Mindy, you should be a co-host and you should be able to.
Very good.
Hey, excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present this today. Typically, we do schedule this one around the latter part of the year, which is when I was scheduled to speak originally with y'all, because I know a lot of organizations do this quick push at the end of the year to try and get some funds in year end. And so I appreciate your kind words about COVID. It definitely hit our family, but we are all recovered and back at it. So thank you for your patience and for rescheduling this. I'm excited for this particular topic because I know funding is really important to the work, whatever the work is, whatever mission you're doing, we need resources to do that. And so we're going to talk through today certainly get to this topic of quick funding strategies, but going to review some good principles and practice for raising dollars in general. So we're going to spend a lot of time kind of talking about this. And you can hear my train, right? You know I'm live because we always have a train go by when I'm doing live trainings. But we're going to spend some time really talking about good donor development, good resource development principles, and then how the quick funding fits into that. So a little bit about CDP. We are Ohio based. We're in the Cincinnati area. We work nationally with nonprofits to help them build their sustainability. We really want nonprofits to be around for a long time doing your work, because you are incredibly important when we talk about healthy communities. And we're about educating, supporting, developing, and connecting community stakeholders so that our communities across the country are thriving. So these are the kind of projects and priorities that we have, working with nonprofits, affordable housing and homelessness, helping social entrepreneurs, and helping to navigate and facilitate community partnerships. And so you can find out more about us on our website. I'll share all that with you as we wrap up today. But we work with a lot of nonprofits, do a lot of sessions, a lot of trainings, to the end that we want nonprofits in communities that are around for a long time doing their work. And we divide nonprofits into 6 components and really strive to make sure that all of a nonprofit's infrastructure is healthy, that we're paying attention to all of it. Some of those things you mentioned even in your first start of your meeting today, talking about making sure that we have strong marketing and communications, all the social media things that you have on schedule. Just making sure that our nonprofits are not just strong programmatically, but that our governing boards are strong, that we have good leadership, that we keep all of our legality pieces in place, and that we are paying attention to the things we need to do to stay healthy as a nonprofit and legal as a nonprofit, making sure we have good checks and balances, and making sure our resources are there. We have good planning structures. I'm not going to go through each of these components as they might do in some of our sessions, but we have good information on all of these if you're interested in learning more about our view of nonprofit organizational development and how to be a healthy nonprofit. But this particular session obviously tucks into this area of resource development. We want you to have the resources you need to do the great work that you're called to do in your communities. And so we do a lot of sessions around grants and how to work with federal funding and how to do donor development and how to do fundraising events, all kinds of components of how to bring in dollars. This particular session, we're going to really focus on how do we do this quick grab for fundraising? How do we do a strategy to bring in cash quickly? So that's really what we're going to focus on today. But we're going to start with a background of 10 strong principles of donor development. So we can lay the groundwork for some of this background information and gives our next piece of quick funding strategies a context. There are some rules of engagement and there are some good principles that build the foundation for healthy resource development that are important to keep in mind when we talk about going out and doing quick funding strategies. So we will get to that part for sure, setting the plan and really talking about some creative strategies. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity as time might permit. We'll see where we get with the time at this juncture of our session, but want to give you all some time to share in a 30-second spiel, what have you done to raise funds quickly? Is there some idea that you have that has fit into what we're going to talk about today that you want to share with your colleagues, or an idea that you might have pop in your mind as we go through the session that you might want to share with others? And then at the end of the session, I'm going to challenge you to take what you've thought about over the time today and put it into practice. I never want someone just attending a session and saying, yeah, that was helpful, that was good information, without doing the next of, what do I do with this? So always moving towards the action piece of how do I take what I've heard today or a nugget of what I've heard today and do something with that. So I'm going to challenge you to think about that as we go through the content over the next hour or so together. So we're going to talk through these 10 principles about resource development, specifically around donor development. So I know many of you get public dollars and some grant dollars to help sustain your work, and that's great. What we always encourage is that nonprofits balance out all of their income streams so that you're not dependent on any one funder, but that you are able to have funds to do your work and do your mission-driven work. And discretionary funds really help you stay on point with some of that. And so the principles that we're going to talk about are really around the idea of raising dollars from your community to support the work that you're doing. So the principle number one that we want to talk about is that no group of individuals is waiting to give you money. We kind of think that sometimes when we do nonprofit work that there's just this untapped group we haven't found yet, that if we could just find this right person that's passionate about our work and we could find this business that really would want to support us, that we just have not found them yet. And the reality is there's not that group just out there waiting for you to connect with them. One of the important principles when we talk about engaging with our community to support our work is that until we engage them and they know about us, they're not going to invest in our work. That's an ongoing theme that we'll come back to over our time today. But anonymous individuals or businesses or organizations who have little or no connection to your work or your organization are not just out there waiting for you to find them. So we need to remove that myth that we just haven't found the group yet. They're waiting for us to find them. That's just not the way this works. There's not that group waiting for us. Many people, many businesses, many organizations will invest in your work if you give them a reason to do so. And so there's not this anonymous group that's waiting for us to find them, but there are donors we haven't yet tapped into that we need to engage with. Principle number 2, donor development is a conversation between the funded and the funder. We have to learn ways to communicate our story into the community. I love that you have this social media training right tomorrow and next week. Very good timing as a follow-up to some of the principles we'll talk about today. What we have to learn how to communicate our story well, communicate that our organization, our work, our coalition has something of value to offer the community. You know more than probably any other pocket industry in the nonprofit sector, data. You all are very strong about knowing data. It's part of the culture of the prevention work. And so we have to figure out how to take that data and share that with the larger community, because the larger community just doesn't always realize what's happening in their own neighborhood, in their own backyard. And so we have to recognize that we need to communicate that our organization and our coalition and our work has something of value to offer the larger community and the donor, the business community, the faith community, so that we are telling our story well. We need to recognize that. Principle number 3, effective donor development is a result of telling your story. So we need to hit the head and we need to hit the heart. I know that many of you are probably well versed in the grant world, writing grants. You have a new opportunity we just heard about today. We know in grants that we want to respond to the request for proposal. We want to respond to what the funder needs. That's part of our challenge as the one seeking grants, is to make sure that we're meeting the need of the funder. We're responding to the things they care about. The same is true when we talk about donor development. We need to have facts and figures. We need to have data points, and we need to have those personal stories of impact. We need to become well-versed in telling our story. And so hitting the head with facts and figures, hitting the heart with personal impact, and be intentional in looking for opportunities to tell our story. So important as a foundational principle of resource development and funding strategies. Principle number 4 is that People give to people. It is about relationship. It is not just about the cause. And when you have a passion for the cause and you have a passion for the mission, we need to find ways to take that passion and make it personal. People will give to people. We want to create a team of people, and we're going to talk about putting a team together for these quick funding strategies, but we need to make sure that we are connecting with individuals. We're connecting personally with businesses. It isn't enough just to champion our cause. Money is raised from individuals. So you take the passion that you have for your cause and you connect on a one-to-one basis with individuals and business leaders in your community. That's what's going to give you the opportunity to get those individual gifts, those individual donations. People give to people, not just the cause alone. Really important and critical part of understanding these principles. Principle number 5 seems like a no-brainer, right? We have to ask for the money. One of the most resistant things I get from nonprofit practitioners is, I hate begging for money. I hate asking people to give me money. We are not going to get quick funding if we aren't willing to do the ask. We have to ask for the money. Funds are solicited. They do not drop out of the sky. We have to ask for what we need. And we need to ask for a specific amount, for a specific purpose, for a specific amount of time. That's true in general with funding strategy, but that is definitely true when we talk about this quick funding. We have to ask for a specific amount of money, for a specific purpose, and we want it by a specific deadline. We want to make sure that we have a clear picture of what it is that we're asking for, how we're going to ask for it. It needs to be very specific with how we're going to do those kinds of solicitations. But we have to get beyond the fear of the ask and be willing to ask people to come alongside and support our work. One of the things we talk about in some of our donor development training is getting past the fear. Making sure that we understand that we are devoting, every one of you on this call today is devoting your most precious commodity to this work, which is your time. Time is the thing that we cannot get back. And so we want to know and recognize that the time we're giving is incredibly valuable. And all we're doing when we're asking for people to support our work with financial resources is giving them an opportunity to come alongside and join with us in this passionate work that we're doing. So stop thinking about it as begging for money and think about it as opening an opportunity for others to join you in this work. So important. So asking for the funds is the point in this particular principle. We have to do the ask. Principle number 6 is you cannot thank a donor enough. Organizations, businesses, churches, individuals that contribute to your organization or come alongside you and contribute to your cause, your coalition, we need to remember that when we're going to ask them to give us more dollars. We do not do our thanking separate from our appeal, separate from our ask. We don't turn on blinders to what they've done in the past when we're asking them to reinvest or to re-gift to us. Every appeal, every ask to someone who's given to you before has to acknowledge that previous contribution. I tell a story in our sessions on donor development, particularly about one nonprofit in our local community that I have supported in the past personally. They send me 3 letters during their annual campaign. They send it to a previous name that I have, they send it to my current name, and they send it to the business. All 3 letters are very static. They don't acknowledge personally. Clearly, they're not looking at who they're sending it to because I'm the same person. They're not working their donor list well. And so what is my response when they're not acknowledging who I am and being personal with their approach to me is I'm not giving to them. I'm not going to contribute to them. So it's not about me needing to feel important, but it is about me being recognized that I'm a contributor of this organization, and that being referenced when they're asking me to continue to give to them. So we need to do better as a nonprofit sector in making sure that if we're going to ask people to contribute, that we are recognizing that they've been part of this before, that they are an important part of our work, so that they feel that connection and they're more likely to continue to support your organization. So the same is true. It's true with the overall picture of donor development, but it's really true when we talk about these quick funding strategies and trying to get people to give in this more of a smaller time span when we do these kinds of approaches. And so if they've given to you before, that needs to be acknowledged and recognized when you go after to get them to support you, even in this quick funding strategy. Principle number 7 is we want to seek investments, not gifts. There's a difference between investors in your organization and those who are just one-time givers. Investment implies a long-term relationship, a relationship you're going to cultivate, you're going to grow over time, that you're going to nurture as you go forth in your work. A gift implies a one-time offering. So there's a difference between the donor, someone who's investing in your work, and the one-time giver. Now, when we talk in the context of quick funding strategies, one of the things that you do have an opportunity to do is look for those one-time givers. We're going to talk about making that emotional appeal. Those are different than your donors that are investing on a long-term basis with you. But we need to understand when we talk about the context of donor development and these principles of giving from the community, that we're really looking for the bread and butter of our organization to be these long-term investors. In the quick funding strategies, we're going to tap into those people, but we're also going to look for those one-time emotional givers, which we'll get to in a minute. Principle number 8, donors are developed, not born. Donor development requires intentional relationship building activities. And so we have a whole session we can do on donor development if you're interested in more information about that. But donor development really is about relationship building. It's cultivating relationships. It's being strategic with who we're approaching, whether it's individuals or it's churches, the faith community, the businesses in your community, other organizations who might give. It's relationship building. That's an important distinction. Engagement has to come before they'll invest. Until people know about your work, they're not going to give you money, whether it's a long-term investment or this quick funding that you're trying to seek. In this context, we have to tell them about our organization and then invite them to contribute. So until they know about us, they're not going to invest in our work. And so anything that we're doing, whether it's this quick funding or whether we're talking long-term donor development strategies, we have to spend the time to teach them about us, engage them before they're going to give us their dollars and invest. Principle number 9 is really important in this context of quick funding strategies. Donor development out of desperation is futile. Quick does not equal desperate. I know sometimes in this work we feel desperate and we feel like we really need to bring funding in quickly. When we're in between grant cycles and our coffers are low, we feel like we need to bring in some quick money. Sometimes that's where we get, and that's how we feel. But we can never come across to the community or to potential donors that we are desperate. They are not going to invest if they feel like you're going to be closing your doors tomorrow. Sometimes we've even seen that used as a strategy. If you don't give to us, we're not going to be able to continue this important work. That is not a way to attract an investor. And so when we talk about quick does not equal desperate. We never want to come across as desperate. We also want to recognize that we want to be urgent. We want to create this sense of urgency, but we don't want to be frantic about it. So it's doing a nice little dance about we need you, but we don't need you. We're giving you an opportunity, and today's the day to do that without appearing like we are going to close our doors if they don't contribute. It's a little dance that we do in this funding world. So we want to be urgent and create a sense of urgency, especially when we're talking about quick funding strategies, but not be desperate or frantic. The time is now, but later is okay too. So if you don't give today, if right now all we're doing is engaging you and showing you the work that we do, but you don't give today, there'll always be an opportunity to give in the future. So the time is now. We want them to give now, but if they choose to give later, that's okay too, because we're going to still be here doing our work in the future. Principle number 10, you can do everything right and you still can't predict what people are going to do. So that just has to be said. We can do this work really, really well and still not get everyone to contribute or have a no. That's going to be expected. People are going to do what people are going to do. But we want to prepare the best infrastructure we can to provide people an opportunity to come alongside and give to us. So just those are kind of the backdrop of the infrastructure of principles that we want to put into place when we talk about donor development. So I'm going to lay those out. Again, if you have other, want more information about any of those other things, we certainly have other sessions that we go and do a deeper dive on those. So we're going to talk next, we're going to move into this idea of setting the plan. We are big planners here at CDP. One of the things I say is if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. If it is in writing, you have to do it. And so even when we're talking about doing a quick funding strategy, something we're going to put into place sometimes fairly quickly, we still need to set a plan. If it's not in writing, we don't do it. And so we want to put together a plan that will allow us to be able to do what we need to do to get these funds in as quickly as we can. So we're going to talk through the 5 components of a quick funding strategy. And then we're going to talk this one on approach. We're going to do a little bit deeper dive on that particular thing, because I think that's somewhat the meat that we want to talk about. But the plan is so important. We should not do anything before we have a plan in place. So we want to talk to the 5 components of what should be in your plan: money, people, approach, timeline, and accountability. And this is true really for any funding strategy we might put into place, not really limited to just quick funding. Number 1 is we need to set out a goal. So many times what nonprofits do is they say, well, whatever we can raise before the end of the month. That's not really going to get you where you want to go. We need to set a financial goal for the short-term period. How much money do we need to raise by this date? What do we need to fill in the budget? I mean, this whole plan should not be absent or separate from everything else the organization's doing. We need to be able to set forth a financial goal. Yes, we're going to raise it in a short-term period, but we still need a goal to shoot for. We also need to understand the impact of the dollars raised. Why are we raising these dollars? What is this quick funding going to be going toward? You have gambling prevention coming up, awareness coming up. If you want to do a short funding strategy around that, then those dollars might go towards gambling prevention. And this will allow us to serve 1,000 more students in this school district, or whatever your numbers are. But you need to know what the impact of the money you're going to be raising during this quick funding strategy, what that's going to go for. Be very specific. How much money are we going to raise, and what is the impact of those dollars being raised? Really important part of this first step of the plan of money. So I want you to think about, when you think about quick funding strategies, if you intentionally are sitting here because this is of interest to you, what would be a reasonable financial goal for you? What would be a reasonable deadline? Can you raise dollars even during this first quarter? By the end of the spring, you want to raise X dollars. So be thinking about what would be reasonable, what would be a good financial goal for you to shoot for, and what would the impact of that money be? Now, if you raise the dollars specifically for a particular part of your project, you want to be careful that those are restricted funds. If you are saying every dollar raised is going to go to this, those become restricted funds similar to a grant. If you say what a $5,000 gift would allow your organization to do, you could still do that in a way that it's discretionary and not restricted funds. we always encourage nonprofits to have professional partners, and having an accountant is one of those partners. And so if you have questions about how your message is being portrayed and whether it's restricted or discretionary funding, then that would be a time to ask your accounting partner that question. But I think the goal here in this particular section is to put forth some kind of idea about where would we want to see some dollars raised and how much money are we looking at. The money piece is number one in setting out the plan. The second part of the plan is the people. So we need to have a team of people who's going to raise these dollars. If we're going to try and raise $10,000 by the end of February or March, perhaps, because we are middle of February already. If we're going to raise those kinds of dollars, $10,000 or $50,000 by the end of March, how's that going to happen in terms of people power? Who's engaged enough for us to put them out to work to raise these dollars? We need a team of people that are going to be involved in this short-term engagement to help us raise these dollars. So who's that team going to be? Often it needs to be people separate from your staff. Staff are in the day-to-day. They can be part of this process, but you cannot shove all of this onto staff. And so I know many of you are the staff and are practitioners. And so I hope I'm getting an amen that you don't need more to do, but you can be part of the process. And so getting a team of people that serve on committees, people that are part of your governing board, people that are interested in just a one-time volunteer opportunity, those are great people to involve in this team. Identify who they are. The team needs to be trained. Enter staff people. What's our message? Who are we? What are we going to be putting out to the group that we're trying to raise from? What's the messaging that's going to be consistent? So train the team and then empower them to go out and raise the dollars. So being very strategic about it, but having that team gathered, having them trained, and having them set into action, going and raising the dollars that you're going to be putting out forth in your plan. Number three, and this is the one that we'll come back to with specific ways to do the approach, but the approach for a quick funding strategy is we absolutely want to connect with our key donors. We want to think about, do we ask them for funds, more funds, especially if they've given, do an annual campaign or they're regular contributors every month. Some of you may have them, but we want to connect with our key donors. We want to engage new donors. We want to tap into those emotional givers, and we'll talk more about how to do that. And then look for others outside of those groups that we could connect to try and raise funds. So we're going to come back to that approach piece, but the approach is a big part of laying out the plan. The fourth part of the plan is the timeline. Everything we do in planning needs a timeline and a person responsible. So the timeline is going to be short term. We're going to do this quick funding strategy that we're going to raise X dollars by when. So we want it to be short enough that we're creating this sense of urgency. Again, not desperate, but urgent. We're trying to raise this, give today. We're going to have this doubled if we can do this in the next hour. I mean, we've all heard those kinds of approaches through telethons and radio raising dollars. We see that a lot on those kinds of radio stations when NPR does their big promo. We want to create that sense of urgency. We want it to be short term. So what's that timeline going to look like to raise these dollars? And then we want to outline key time elements of the plan. So if I'm asking Betty to go talk to these three people, I need Betty to do that by next Friday. So I may have until the end of March to raise the dollars, but Betty's role is going to be by next Friday. And so we want to have key time elements within our quick funding strategy that we're requiring these individuals to raise the dollars, to go have lunch with, to reach out via phone, to have a virtual meeting, to take this person to dinner, whatever that is that these individuals are going to be involved with in asking for the dollars. We want to make sure there are key timelines even within the plan itself. Really important. Again, know your end game. We want to raise $50,000 by the end of March. That's what we're shooting for. And we know Betty is going to ask these 3 people and hopefully raise $4,500 through these 3 people. We need to know the end game, both for the organization and for individuals. Lay out the expectation of how much we're going to require in these different ways for the funds to be brought in. And so just being very specific about that and stick to those deadlines. So if I asked Betty to court these 3 people in this funding strategy by the end of March, and I ask her to have them communicated with and connecting with them by next week, I have to hold her accountable to that. Stick to the deadlines so that we don't get at the end of March and there's no movement because we thought Betty would do that, but she didn't. And so keeping those timelines very specific and laid out and well strategized and holding people accountable to those is really important, which is this 5th one, is accountability. Who's responsible for this quick funding strategy campaign? Someone needs to be the leader of this campaign. It's a great role for someone who has those leadership qualities and maybe serves on your board or serves on a committee well, or is a real champion for your cause, to be a leader of this short-term strategy. Again, we want to avoid you, the staff, being involved with yet another project if you already have a full plate. But someone needs to be the leader of this quick funding strategy. We need to make sure we're measuring progress. If in the scenario we're going to raise this $50,000 by the end of March, how are we going to measure progress? How are we going to hold people accountable? How am I going to know that Betty, who was supposed to have lunch or connect with these people by the end of next week, actually did that? That's going to require that I'm measuring that in a very specific way as we go. If it's a 6-week campaign, it's going to be a lot in that 6 weeks, but we've got to measure progress. Once a month meeting's not going to cut it. So making sure that we have a system in place to measure that accountability, make sure we're moving towards this end game of raising $50,000 by the end of March, and keep that project moving forward. We don't have time to just sit and not do if we have that kind of urgency in raising quick dollars. We're not going to be able to sit back and just let things go for any amount of time if we're under this quick, urgent kind of timeline. Address concerns and delays. So if Betty's not holding up her end of the bargain, who's going to take those 3 people? Maybe we can shift Betty to a different project or ask her to participate with the organization in a different way. But we need to make sure that the 3 people identified for her to talk with, someone's courting them, someone's talking to them, someone's approaching them if Betty drops the ball. And so making sure we have a system in place for all of that to address any delays, any concerns that come up. If we're doing a big social media campaign and something gets leaked, it's incorrect or wrong dates on it or some mistake, we need to have a plan in place. Someone's catching that and someone's addressing that. So that's all part of this accountability. And then of course we want to celebrate success. You know, we have those old United Way kind of thermometers that we've all probably seen where it shows within an organization or a business when they've reached their goal. It's a visual way of representing the goal for that individual business. That's one way of celebrating success. You've got to figure out a way during this 6-week period, if using this example, by the end of March, how are we going to celebrate success? Are we going to send something out to everyone that says every time we reach some kind of milestone? What's going to keep that momentum going and celebrate as we go? We really need to communicate so well when we talk about this part of the plan and accountability. So we don't want to just hope it happens. We want to really put all of the plan in place to make sure that we can move this quick funding strategy into being successful. That's ultimately what we want to see happen. So we're going to move in talking specifically about the approach piece, the 3rd step in this plan. And the 4 approaches I want to kind of give some attention to are the 4 types of donors or givers that we want to try and tap into when we do a quick funding strategy. So we're going to talk through each of these specifically. And the first one we're going to talk about is to connect with our key donors. So you may have businesses that routinely give you dollars or give you in-kind contributions of some kind. You may have churches or part of the faith community that regularly connects with you. You may have individuals, business leaders, civic groups that regularly connect with you. If they've given to you, they would fall into this bucket of key donors. So when we talk about a quick funding strategy, we want to look at all of those organizations and people that have contributed to your work. And we want to identify those who haven't given yet. So maybe they are in our list of we're really courting them and trying to get them to become a regular invested donor. That's a key group that we want to court for this quick funding strategy. It can be that next thing that we haven't quite hooked them in yet, but this would be the opportunity to get them to really donate and invest. So we want to identify anyone who we would say we want to, that's engaged with us, but hasn't yet said yes to the contribution. Those are great people to approach in this short-term strategy to raise dollars. Those who haven't yet given, but are just on the edge, you've been courting them. You also want to identify people who have given to your organization, but haven't given enough, haven't given to their full capacity, that you feel like they're a little bit invested, but they could invest a whole lot more than what they have invested. Those are people, great people to approach during this quick funding strategy. You also want to connect with people that may have a special interest. So as you say, develop a project that these quick funding strategy is going to support, who in your community that's been a donor, that's been a supporter of yours, may have a special interest in that particular program area. You want to identify them. And so it's important. This is a mental exercise for your team, your leadership team, your program team, to think through all those who have given. And when we say donors, we tend to think individuals, but it's also the businesses, the corporate structures, the organizations, the community partners, the faith community that has contributed to your work. Who hasn't given yet that you feel like will if they just had that one more opportunity, that one more ask? Who hasn't given to their full potential that you could approach? And who may have a special interest in this area? So those are the first donors that you're going to start identifying with. And then we think about, okay, so I've been identified them, now what? How am I going to ask them to contribute to the funding strategy? And this is where every single person or organization that's going to be approached needs to be thought through what's the best approach for that individual. One of the things we really tell organizations not to do is what we call spray and pray. So identify every business in the community, send a generic letter to all of them, or even an individualized letter to all of them and hope that somebody contributes. That isn't the approach we want to take. This is a very individualized approach. When we look at, in this particular strategy, we're looking at key donors, people who have been key supporters of your organization. We're going to approach them individually. We may set up a personal meeting with them, and then we're going to decide who needs to take that meeting. And of course, right now that can be virtual, or it might be a meeting in person at their office or at a coffee shop. We're going to look at who on our team that we've set aside to do this quick funding strategy on the planning team for this, the people who are going to help us make this happen. Who of those individuals is going to be the best person to approach each of these key donors? And how are they going to approach? Going back to my example of Betty, Betty may really want to be one-on-one with people. And so she may know John Smith better than anyone else at the table. And John Smith's been identified as one of our key donors that we want to connect with during this push for this quick funding strategy. So we may have Betty connect with John Smith, and she may make a phone call to him. She may take him to lunch. She may connect with him via Zoom meeting. She may invite him over for dinner to her house and invite him that way to participate. Betty gets to decide what's the best approach to approach John Smith. And so when we talk about the key donors, we identify who they are, we identify who is going to connect with them and how that's going to get done. And so it's being very strategic about every connection we have to make this quick funding strategy happen. So I know it seems like a lot of work, it is, but our goal here is to raise $50,000 in a very quick, by the end of March. And so when we have that kind of quick funding strategy, we just need to be very deliberate with how we do the strategy and how we lay this out. So again, we're going to look first at our key donors. And then the second group we're going to target with our approach for a quick funding strategy is new donors. So these are people who may have come to an event. They may be a volunteer at a certain event. They may be the parent of kids that are involved in our work. They may be recipients of the newsletter that we send out. They may be following us on social media. They may comment about things that we put out on Facebook. We need to identify those people who are somewhat connected to our organization, but haven't really contributed. They've not really given us money. They've not really donated stuff to us. They're not really volunteering on a regular basis with us. They're not really super involved, but they're engaged with us. They know about our work. For your work, the parents of the kids who attend your prevention or the spouses of people who come to groups you might have, those are people who know about your work that are engaged, but haven't yet invested. We want to identify who that group of people is. And so looking at our volunteers, those who have attended events, our newsletter recipients, other people that are somewhat engaged with us, they haven't said yes yet, but they are ripe for it. They're ripe to be approached. We may have never asked them to donate, but so they're different than the first group that has somewhat donated to us or has been right on the cusp of that. But these are your new donors, people that are engaged but haven't yet invested in your work. You again want to walk through who is that group of people and then how are we going to approach them? We need to set out for every type of potential donor that we have, or even the individuals. I don't know how big your list is going to be, but really going through those individuals, what's the best way to approach John Smith that is ripe for the asking but has never been asked? Who wants to call him? Who wants to connect with him? Who wants to reach out to him? And how are we going to do that? Again, personal meeting, a phone call, invite them over for dinner or a private event. It can even be a private Zoom chat where you invite a lot of people to this one meeting on Zoom. Be creative with that, but figure out who those new potential donors might be, and then how are we going to approach them? So we have our key donors, we have engaged new donors, and then number 3 is something that you have that you want to play on outside of even our regular donor strategy. When you're doing a quick funding strategy, emotional givers give in the moment. So when we talk about tapping into emotional givers, we want to find those individuals that are moved by our cause or our story, who is really attracted to the heartstring portion of our work. So we're looking for those people who have been moved to give or that we think would be. So these are not people that are necessarily thinking with data, they're thinking with their heart. And so we want to tap into that during this process of a quick funding strategy. These are similar people that come to fundraising events and leave giving you money because they were moved by the stories. So we want to find that group of people, those emotional givers, when we talk about giving in a quick funding strategy kind of way. So find those who are following on social media, those who like all your feel-good stories on social media. That's a real indication that they're those emotional givers. Find those groups that are the youth groups or the civic clubs or school groups that really are moved with compassion for the work that you're doing. And then you're going to have emotional givers just in the general public. So in this part of the strategy, we're looking for people who we can tap into that emotional piece to move them towards giving. And then we need to create, during this quick funding period of time, we need to create an opportunity for that emotional wave to hit. So we need to find a compelling speaker that's going to go do a Facebook Live that's going to be compelling with their story. Or we need to do an emotionally charged video that we can share out on social media, or that we can share with those who are part of our newsletter email list. A moving video that pulls at those heartstrings, that really is going to move people towards compassion to support our work. And giving some scripted stories, thinking about what are those heartfelt stories. You all have them. You do the work because you're not just moving the needle on the data, but you're really impacting the life of people in your communities. So find those stories and figure out a way to tell those stories in writing. So we need to find opportunities during this 6-week period to really move the people that are hearing this information, move them emotionally, and provide them opportunity to support our work. So find those ways to tap into those emotional givers. And you might do that through social media. You might do an online fundraiser. You might do the stories. You might blog. You might do the GoFundMe. Find ways to connect in with the stories and the emotional wave that you're creating, and find the outlets for that. You also might do a one-day giving blitz where you have almost like the Jerry Lewis telethon idea. If you do that on social media, where you have story after story after story during a one-time kind of blitz. Giving Tuesday is a popular one toward the end of the year where people do this kind of thing. But create a buzz, create an opportunity around what your quick funding strategy time period is going to be to create that emotional blitz, even online. Give visible giving promotions. Like I think of in communities where the firemen are raising dollars for fallen firefighters, and they have their boots out at stoplights taking dollars from passerby cars. That's a very visible way of doing a promotion. So what might that look like for you? Is there a way to do that? Again, you're not looking at the invested person, you're looking at someone who's going to respond quickly out of an emotional grab. And there's great reason to do that. Those emotional givers can become investors in your organization moving forward. But during this quick funding strategy, we're looking for ways to be visible and do that quick emotional grab. So a really good way to get some quick funding coming in. And maybe doing an event, even if it needs to be online, or maybe do a smaller event in your community where you can be socially distanced. Find ways to tell your story, tell it in a compelling way, and move that emotional marker for people so that they can respond to you and support your work in real ways with some dollars. And then the fourth creative strategy is really to think of other ways. Keep your eyes open. How else might you reach a new audience or the general public? Again, piggyback ways to connect in on other platforms you hadn't thought about before, or ways to be more diligent with some of your connection on platforms that you may not have thought about before. Think about ways to use the media. Think about ways that you can have a YouTube channel that can help promote or use your YouTube channel to do that. Think about other ways that you might connect in with your local media, your digital media, your newscasters. Get involved with your local people that are doing news and see if they would cover your short-term fundraising blitz. So use the local media and use other media outlets that you can think of to get your story out to reach a new audience or the general public that may not even be aware of what you're doing. And then deploy your network. You all have coalition members, you have volunteers. If you look at everyone involved with your organization, You have an extensive number of people that are connected to you and your work. Don't be afraid to use them to reach others. It can be as simple as we're going to have one post that we're going to ask our entire network to share on their social media. Don't be shy about asking your network to help you during this quick funding strategy. They may not want to always share everything that you have with their entire social media or social network, but they may be willing to do that in a quick funding strategy period. So think about ways that you can use the current people that are involved with you and use their contacts to get the word out about what you're doing. Think strategically about that. And one of the things I would say to you during this point here is that don't wait for your volunteers or people that are involved with your coalition to volunteer to do this. Don't say, who would let us use your contacts, or who would be willing to share this on your social media. Don't ask them to volunteer, ask them to do it. So ask them to send it out. Don't just ask them to say, would you be willing? But say we're asking all of our network to share this on Giving Tuesday. We're asking everyone to share this particular post and use that as kind of the impetus to make it happen, rather than asking them to volunteer. Sometimes we feel almost guilty about using our network to get the word out. And again, you're doing amazing things, and the work that you're doing is incredibly valuable. So don't count on me thinking I might need to volunteer, but ask me to get it out and to use my network to do that. So that's the way we can help reach a new audience or the general public using our current network of individuals or volunteers. So some ways, again, other ways that we can get the word out to others is, you all remember the Ice Bucket Challenge, right, from a couple of years back. That was super popular. No one expected it to be as viral as it was. What can be your contest, your challenge that you might put together for your quick funding strategy time period that could garner that kind of attention? Or is there something you can do with a contest or a challenge? Can you sell something? Can you have some kind of unique item that you're trying to get out, which the point is to raise dollars, not to just make money on the thing you're selling, but as an awareness kind of thing? I know that your industry is really good about awareness. It's one of the key components of your work. So what can you do? What can you sell that can help you get the awareness out, really to garner more interest in donating during your funding strategy or during this quick funding period of time? Create a unique experience or opportunity. Can you have something where you're meeting a celebrity or some kind of big event, unique experience that you can offer during this online experience, something like that, something that you can think of creatively to do, or the old-fashioned telethon, that kind of an idea. But other ways that you can think about making something happen during this quick funding strategy period that can draw attention, that can reach people that aren't on your current mailing list, to really garner some interest and attention and ultimately get you some new funding, because that's the whole goal with all of this. So I want to open it up. I think we have a little bit of time, not a whole lot, but a little bit of time. Is there something that came to mind for you all? Is there something that you have done that you have an idea about how you could raise funds quickly for your organization? Just quickly. I don't want to have a 2 or 3 minute, but if you could do a 30-second, this idea might really be something to think about, or something that worked for our organization. I'm gonna kind of throw it open to the floor and see if anybody has anything to share that's worked for you or that you think might work. Anyone? Okay. Well, I hope that means that your minds are still thinking and considering what else might be a good way for you to raise some dollars. What I'm going to challenge you with is that you think about all of the different ideas, all the different strategies, especially the different approaches that you might take with the key donors, with new donors, with looking at the others in your network that you might be able to reach out to. And think about how would you go about raising dollars quickly from those different types of groups. And then to set out a time this year, whether it's in the immediate or if it's during a season that tends to be a little bit drier for you financially, to plan for when we could implement quick funding strategies. One of the things that a lot of organizations do is they try to do that end of the year push. I think that's fine, except for you're in competition with a lot of other groups that are also doing end of the year pushes. So as you can think about other times throughout the year that might be a little bit more strategic with the work that you're doing. I mean, many of you do work in schools. And so people think about schools during the back to school time or when summer's approaching. Is there a time during that part of the year that you might be able to do this quick funding strategy rather than just wait till the end of the year when everyone's kind of on that vein of trying to get year-end gifts, to think more strategically about that. I'm going to look at see if there are things in the chat that I might be able, I don't know if, James, are you looking at the chat, monitoring that to see if there are questions in there?
I am, just a lot of positive feedback.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the challenge for you as we have kind of move into, if you have other questions, I'll definitely take those in a minute. But what I'm going to challenge you to do is to pick a favorite idea that's come to mind. If others of you can share your, oops, go back here. If you want to share with each other some impact statements, some things that you've done that this has really worked, pick your favorite idea. Think of an idea of how you might be able to do a quick fundraising strategy. And start writing down what a financial goal might be, what that impact would be. Put your quick funding team together, figure out your different approach. What's that deadline? What's that season that which we're going to raise funds, and then figure out how you're going to hold the team accountable. So you all should have that booklet in hand, and in there is all the slides here. Revisit that and think about how you can, in this year of 2021, institute this quick funding strategy campaign that can bring some additional, hopefully discretionary dollars into your organization as you move forward. So if there are other questions, James, if you could monitor those and let me know that. Just kind of want to point out in the booklet, we have a couple of things. I have some information about our membership. I love that the ADAPO, there was that distinction made between your organization here and ADAPO and how those support each other. Ours is really about the nonprofit organizations. And so if you are leading that and you want some support and some help around nonprofit organizational development, that's where we plug in. And there's information on our website about membership. We also do host boot camps, and that can be a way to bring in dollars for your organization. So you host one, and then you help bring people to the table to attend that, and then you get to share in the proceeds of that. So it's another way of raising some dollars. If you're interested in that, you can see the information about that. There's my contact information. I'm here. So if there are questions that you have, things that come up later, you start doing your campaign and you run into something that you want to run by me, I'm here for you. My email address is there. You can see our website information there. So don't hesitate to reach out. Whatever I can do to support your work, I want to be able to do. Love the prevention work. I love what you all are doing. The work you do makes a huge difference. When we look at health of community and looking at stakeholders in community and what makes our community healthy, we're not just thinking physically, we're thinking overall what makes a community healthy is places we want to live, work, and raise our families. And the work you do contributes mightily to that. So appreciate all the work that you all do in your communities, and we're here to support you however we can. So are there any questions before we wrap up? Anything I can answer for you?
right, well, I am not seeing any. So thank you so much, Mindy. As always, Mindy's been with us before. As always, very useful information, very good information. We appreciate your flexibility in being able to join us in February instead of December. And again, glad you're doing well.
Thank you so much.
Before we depart, one thing I realized that I skipped in our SPCA updates was a save the date for a couple of events. We have, instead of our regularly scheduled April meeting, which our meetings are, if you don't know, the third Tuesday of every other month, we are actually going to have 2 back-to-back days worth of events, 2 virtual events, to replace some of our regularly scheduled in-person events. We have on Monday, April 19th, that is going to be our virtual Coalitions Rising, which is normally a one-day conference, virtual, of course. That is going to be a series of speakers and trainings throughout the day. Piece together what you'd like to attend, no obligation to attend the entire thing. Obviously, we see value in attending the entire thing, but we understand, Zoom fatigue and schedules and all that. So we don't have our exact lineup just yet, but save the date for Monday, April 19th. That's normally when that's held in person. I think last year we charged $125 for the day. This year it is free. So please take advantage of that. The following day, pardon me, Tuesday, April 20th, which let me just say, I have to say, I think 420 is the great day to have a SPCA meeting and a SPCA event. That day is going to be the virtual version of what is normally our SPCA annual meeting. If you remember, the one last year was supposed to take place right after COVID lockdown started. The one the year before that was at the zoo. So I promise that as SPCA coordinator, we will have a great annual meeting in person when we're allowed to. In the meantime, that is going to be a virtual event on April 20th. We're going to hear Stacy, both Stacy and Bobby Boyer from Ohio Moss have agreed to provide some updates, say a few remarks, as well as our executive director here at PAA, Frian Gerbig. So they'll be joining us. That is just going to be a 2-hour event. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to noon. So the same time as a regularly scheduled SPCA meeting. So we'll get some updates from Ohio Moss, from Prevention Action Alliance, and then Karen Vedino will be joining us for that. I think some of you have probably seen Karen before. She did a lot of stuff with the CAP network right after COVID started. We're trying to figure out a good way for her to present and what to present on. And we talked about resilience, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we've heard a lot about resilience over the last year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to talk about how to recognize what we've been through collectively, just recognizing and appreciating everything that we've been through and the importance of taking care of ourselves before we can go back to taking care of our community. So if you've heard Karen before, you know that, and Gwen just chimed in, Karen is amazing. That's literally what I was about to say. If you've heard Karen before, you know it's a fantastic mix of humor and just I've laughed, I've cried. I know it's a cliche, but Karen is truly a dynamic speaker. So we're pleased to have her. And that, of course, is again a free event. So please save those dates on your calendar, April 19th and April 20th. And last thing, those of you that know Lauren or have interacted with Lauren in our office, know that she does all of our continuing education certificates. She does a ton of behind the scenes work. And she would be very upset if I did not share with you the required evaluation to get continuing education for this event. So I just put that SurveyMonkey link in the chat box. please complete the evaluation. It is a requirement to get the continuing education certificate for this event. So open that up, and then as we end, just spend a minute or two completing that for us. So on that, I think we are about ready to wrap it up. Beth, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, there's just a great comment in the chat box, James, from Tracy, who talks about having a letter for her board outlining their expectations for their support, not support, but their active involvement, I guess it might be a better way to explain it, for fundraising. I just think that's a really critical piece. And I love the fact that she shared that with us. I think this is, again, it's that intentionality. That's what I think I took away most from Mindy's conversation today, is the need to be so intentional in this work. And sometimes, I know, for speaking for myself, it seems like one more thing, but obviously the more intentional we are we, the more successful we're going to be. Yeah,
agreed. And I apologize. I'm going back through the chat. I see we had a couple come in as I was talking there. Regina, I see it is your first SPCA meeting, so welcome. Look forward to working with you and seeing you at more of these. Judy, I know you didn't say anything, but I see you here. It is also Judy's first SPCA meeting. I believe Judy is from Wood County, so welcome. And on that, thank you for the wave. On that, we will go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you all for your time. Again, I know we're all zoomed out, but we try to bring value to these, and I think we do a good job at that. So thank you all. Have a great day. Be safe in the snow. Hopefully nobody has to leave today to do anything, if I'm being honest. So again, thank you all. Have a great day.